Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here on North Carolina. We welcome you to make yourself comfortable as we go over the current state of the world and our nation. If you missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to at least watch the first episode to have a proper introduction to our conversations. These conversations are not otherwise happening in any sequential order. Please be aware that we expect you to behave with honor in the comment section. We are a people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or sales podcast, and we are not sovereign citizens. Sovereign citizen is an oxymoron, and if you say that you're a sovereign citizen, then you are a moron. A sovereign is a free and honorable living man or woman who operates under God's law, natural law, hermetic law, and who honors themselves and others in peace. One definition for the word citizen is slave, but there are different kinds of citizens, so putting those two words together is an oxymoron. We also do not promote or condone TikTok, Facebook, or any other social media games to test the system or to impose your beliefs onto society at large. This is not a marketing and promotional channel. We are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you. And we're sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We're interested in helping you reclaim your birthright and your inheritance. We are not sitting in judgment of you. This is information that is a beacon of light for you to use when you choose to seek it. We have marshals at arms that are designated as moderators who are assisting in the comment section. Please be kind with your words, and if you diminish others, you will be put in a timeout or deleted or blocked as deemed necessary. If you have any questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I'm joined on air with our North Carolina Marshal at Arms, Cynthia Pinkston, and now I am proud to introduce you to Justice Anna Maria, who is joining us live from Alaska today. Happy New Year, Anna.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all. I hope this is a great year for everybody. I have every reason to think that those who have escaped the sea will be very happy that they did so.
I mean, Anna, we gave you a week off to rest from doing the show, and wowza, you closed 2023 with a bang. I mean, listen, I don't know if y'all are out there in YouTube land and you're not following Anna's website, which is in our show notes, okay? But on her website, she writes articles, and we let her have a break from talking with us, and there's been this war. There's a war that's been going on in the background, and Anna's been fighting it with her pen, which is mightier than the sword, and she has been able to actually, during all these many battles, there's a lot of truth that has come to light. And amidst those truths were a few that are so big that we know that we can walk into 2024 and just know that the world will never be the same again. And I was wondering, Anna, if you might be able to speak with us about this maritime commercial law dead fictions that have fallen, the law of merchants, the ancient feudal system that, that's actually happening in the world that a lot of people just are completely unaware of. And tell us, in your the last 9 or 10 or 13 articles are just so powerful. But yesterday's article that you started out with, wow. All I can really kind of say is, wow. If people out there, when you read this, she's basically telling us that the corporatocracy has been revealed as a fraud, and it is 100% null and void. Is that correct?
Correct. The situation that has developed over many years, centuries, is that the British don't really have a king. The British throne, the throne of England, the British throne depends on the throne of England. and the throne of England has been left unoccupied since the early 1700s. So when you understand that they are quote unquote legless, and that they're not actually functioning as the king or queen of England, and that they have purposely engaged in activities to make the people of England believe that they had a king or queen, the entire thing melts down. It's like when you're playing these games where you're putting blocks and other little things on top of each other, and then at a certain point the entire construction falls down. Well, that one crucial little piece, being the king or queen of England, um, and faking it, basically, collapses that whole tower, because they don't have the standing on the land jurisdiction to be able to support their claims at sea and in the air. So it turns out that having that position and actually being crowned as king of or queen of England matters. And it also turns out that they haven't been doing it and really doing it for 300 years. So that basically voids their laws, because their laws are legislation. They're not laws like we have public laws. They're acts of legislation that impact the personnel and dependents of their corporations, right? None of that has any validity. They have to have the king or queen sign their laws, and all those signatures are void for fraud. And we started seeing the top of this iceberg back in the 1990s with a court case in the British High Court called Regina versus J-A-H, John Anthony Hill. And basically, John Anthony Hill had noticed that he was watching the coronation of the queen, and the oaths that she took and the vows that she made, and kissing the Bible and all of that back in 1953, because it was televised and everybody, one way or another, has seen this. It's a very iconic film clip. And then he noticed that within 3 days after making all these vows to be a Christian monarch, she started signing legislation instead, which it violates her entire coronation. So within 3 days, which is the period of rescission, she actually abdicated the throne of England and went and sat on what's called the chair of the estates instead. And so she began managing dead things, estates. And so the whole coronation was a farce. She did not function as a Christian monarch, and she did not affirm the contract that she made with the British people. So essentially, he discovered and brought forward the fact that she was a fraud. And the British High Court had to agree with him, because the facts are right there. I mean, there's nothing to be said to the facts. And I was astonished by this. Most of the people who were aware of it at the time were amazed. It was like, number one, how can this be? And number two, what does it mean? Well, being a British corporation, they just kept rolling on with the supposition that, okay, well, so what? She's operating in the jurisdiction of the sea now, and in the jurisdiction of the sea, it doesn't matter if she lied about her coronation to the entire nation. And it just sort of sat there in the air for a long time, and everyone was just kind of at a standstill. What do you say or do about something like that? And then we recently had King Charles's coronation, And it was funky monkey with that too. He was not crowned with or using the verbiage of the King of England. He was again, he was crowned as an imperial king in the Roman system, more like Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, he was crowned as an emperor instead of as a king, really. And he did not take the appropriate vows to be a king of England. So this is now the second time that we've seen this weird phenomenon of uh, the whole setup where they're supposed to be acting as King of England, and then that gives them the right to act as the King of Great Britain and at sea. And then they're supposed to be acting as the King of Great Britain at sea before they can claim to be the King of the UK, right? There's a progression here. And it's all supposed to go from land to sea to air. Um, and instead, they've been occupying these other jurisdictions and making it look to the English people as if they've got a Christian monarchy that is bound by the constitutions. So the Brits have been suffering the same thing we have, in that they've been promised a Christian and constitutional monarchy, and they've been getting a pagan sea jurisdiction uh, sort of regime instead. And basically, that regime has been avoiding the limitations of the British Constitution for generations, in the same way that the bureaucracy here has been evading its obligations under our constitutions. They've been getting away with this because they had weaseled around, and by a process of birth registration and other um, claims that they made, uh, they had vacated the land and soil jurisdiction of this entire country to such an extent that they felt secure in promoting this. And essentially, in both countries, the Constitution has been evaded by the leadership and by the Congresses, the Parliament in England and the Congress here. They have been doing this, and the people have not been aware of it. In fact, the people have been given the exact opposite impression that all was well. And now the facts come forward, and we realize that these governments have been totally illegitimate for at least 150 years. And as we're beginning to tear into it, it looks like it's been that way in England for 300 years, going all the way back to the reign of Queen Mary, the last Stuart monarch, who reigned, I believe it was 1701 to 1714. So that gives you an idea of just how long this fraud scheme has been going on, and how they have been evading their responsibilities to the people of England, just like our quote unquote presidents have been avoiding and evading their obligations under the constitutions.
And our presidents and military leaders bending the knee to the queen.
Right? Yes, that's another aspect of it. We we noticed uh, that various people were being knighted by the Queen, including Henry Kissinger, um, George H.W. Bush Sr., um, the uh, the generals Colin Powell and Norman Schwarzkopf. And we're watching this and we're going, what the, you know, how is it that the Queen is doing her little, knighting ceremony with these men? These are supposed to be our leaders, our diplomats, our generals. What? This is ridiculous. And so, yes, this was actually going on, and people were not aware, not putting two and two together to realize that these men were working for the queen.
Most of these children have no idea about what it means to bend the knee to the queen. They think it's just some cool ceremony or something. What are you saying, Cynthia?
Let's piggyback.
Yeah.
So you went through last night talking about back to Lincoln and the Executive Order 100, which was the Lever Code, which gave the money over to the military to control. That was a fraud.
Right.
So if Serco and all of the Brits that control the military money is fraud, then how long before, and you put that article out on the military, how long before we see that domino collapse?
Well, the problem is they have developed all this black ops money and a money laundering system to go with it. So they've been basically making money on the side for a long time, since the Second World War. They've been, filching and running all these different kind of quasi-criminal or criminal operations to make extra money. And so the military is unfortunately in a position where they've been complicit in a lot of the different kinds of crimes that are now being brought forward. The adrenochrome factories, the biowarfare facilities after biowarfare was outlawed internationally. The human trafficking. I mean, think about this. When they come in and they register these American babies as British subjects and citizens, they are trafficking those babies. They are taking them from their native, natural, political birthright status, and they are trafficking them into a foreign British domain. Okay. That act of signing that paperwork and transferring those babies to the British territorial jurisdiction is human trafficking. And it is literally human trafficking, because remember what I taught you about the word human. They're not talking about literal people. They're talking about hue, H-U-E, as in color of man. And they're running an enslavement racket using this.
The harm that's being caused, like what, Anna, like this, sorry, it's so big. This is so big. And, look, we know that you're putting everybody on notice. You've put them on notice since then. It is your responsibility, and you are doing your work as the fiduciary, and there's a lot of things that you're doing in the background that nobody has any idea what's going on. And the big question is for everyone, look, we know from knowing you and speaking with you that you are thinking about way more than all of this and way down the line, and you've been preparing for this, and you know how to manage this. I don't think that it's been a secret for most of us that the corporatocracy was collapsing. The centralized systems have always been, collapsing and or fragile. And you've written about this ad nauseum as well. But how is this going to unfold? Like, I loved your last couple of articles. I kept texting you saying, oh my goodness, and I can't wait. And then you come out with another article, and I was like, she's just responding to my, I felt like we were just having this conversation. I'd say something to you. You just, boom, throw out 15 pages or something. Like, I have all of your articles. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I mean, I'm not worried, but there are going to be a lot of people who have no idea what's happening.
Right.
So how do you even begin with this? Because what you're saying to me sounds like the military has their own pocketbook on the side or whatever. So does that mean that, like, Is no one going to stand up in front of them and say, excuse me employer, you employee, or are you're going to say they bad guys, we good guys, or how is this going to go? I love your Tarzan analogy. So
Yeah, well, it is really that simple. At the close of the day, we are the employers, they are the employees. It doesn't matter how many layers of different bosses and middlemen they try to put in between. At the final analysis, where does the money come from? It comes from us. Now, they are making a bunch of black ops money, and we all know that and have cause to know that. But that black ops money is money that's being coerced out of people and from illicit, illegal, unlawful things that they're doing. Now, I am, from what I've seen and directly experienced in my life, it really does not surprise me a great deal that parts of our military would be involved in setting up adrenochrome. They've been involved in selling drugs ever since the wars in China in early 1900s, where the Chinese were suffering such a drug addiction problem brought on by British territorial forces in China that their entire culture and society was being threatened by this. And so the heroin addiction had to be stopped in China, which the Chinese finally did by making heroin available to the addicts. And then all the addicts would just basically kill themselves. They had free access to as much heroin as they wanted. And they essentially all killed themselves with heroin overdoses at one point or another. And that's how the Chinese dealt with the heroin problem that came along with the British territorial Raj when it came to China. And so they have a history. The British territorial Raj in China did that. It did other things in India. It's just a rotten mercenary organization is what it is. And so they have a long history of dealing in drugs, in trafficking people for enslavement purposes. You saw how that began and how it was the result of the quote-unquote Christian conquests in Africa that suddenly the Christian Africans were claimed by the Pope, and then all the rest were given as chattel, as prize chattel to the quote-unquote Christian kings. And so that's how the slave trade began in Africa. That then, of course, wound up with our plantations in the South and that entire issue. These guys have loved slavery from forever, since the days of Rome. And if you look at Rome, you realize that Rome was built on slavery too. So slavery is the issue, and it is still the issue because they have contrived to find legalistic ways of enslaving the entire Earth's population, except for those countries they haven't quite been able to catch up with yet. And you'll notice, if you have been watching MSNBC, that they are doing this big buildup, this big propaganda campaign against China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Those are the four big remaining obstacles to them having a world hegemony. So, of course, they want to get into some kind of fight with them and overwhelm them with technological advanced weaponry from space. So they're looking for an excuse to start World War III. And of course, again, we would be stuck paying for it. And the Americans, of all of the people who've been affected by this fraud and this criminality, the Americans have been the goats financially. Because you will note that they set it up as of 1937 so that all those babies that they were human trafficking were dubbed not only British territorial citizens, but also dubbed as municipal citizens. So they got us in a status where both the British King and the Pope could benefit themselves directly by subjecting us as their citizenry, right? Um, and so they got us to pay the public debt via the British citizen claims, and they got us to pay the private debt of the municipal government via the municipal citizenship claims. We were paying for the whole shooting match for everybody.
While they keep everyone uneducated and with a boot on their neck, because people are not understanding, people don't know, Anna, that this is all parts of the, they don't understand commerce, the bill of exchange. They don't know about, when people like now they're trying to figure this out. And now you have a whole group of people that are out there creating bills of exchange and leaning against the wealth of the living people, but they're doing it with, sending these to the corporatocracy, because there's like probably these same kind of folks that are out there screaming sovereign citizen. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole group of these folks that are doing this. They don't understand. They think they're trying to put financial pressure. Like they want to build a pressure financially, because they feel like they don't understand the whole credit that actually already exists, that they know that they're applying, that they're not showing, because there's two sets of books.
Right.
Does it make sense what I'm saying, Anna?
Well, people try to defend themselves however they see any possibility of doing so without guns, right?
Right.
And, so there's this whole group of people out there who are preaching commercial liens. And that's what Winston Shrout did. And we all know that Winston Shrout was taken out and thrown in some loathsome jail somewhere and hasn't been heard from since. So, that should be at least some degree of warning to people that they, as living people, should not be meddling in commerce.
Do you need to take that?
Commerce is the most distant realm from our living self. I mean, you start out as a man, and then you acquire a lawful name, then you acquire a legal name, and then finally you acquire another legal name that is even further removed from who and what you are. Those things that are operating in commerce are all corporations. Okay, so this is, when you're dealing in commerce, you're dealing in a realm that everything in that realm is dead. Everything in that realm is incorporated. It's not just corporate. It doesn't just have its own identity and name and whatnot. It is incorporated into the municipal system. The municipal government and the city-states that belong to that municipal government has its own law. It's called the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, and it applies to nothing at all except corporations that are being operated in the names of people and corporations that are being operated in the name of municipal corporations. So, Joe Average down on the farm has no business in that system. He couldn't possibly understand what it is and what it does and how it works. He could not possibly have standing to operate in that system.
Right. I think, like you said, they are trying to find any way to defend themselves because they know that there is harm being done. They know they're being harmed. And so this should be a warning, friends. All of you out there in YouTube land, there are many people out there that are teaching that you should, let's start doing these, like, come join our program, come join our, and we're going to put pressure together. Let's get organized. Anna, they're trying to get people organized to start leaning and, organizing these different ways. This is a big thing that's going on right now.
I know, but all they're going to do is waste their time and get in trouble.
But I just am using this opportunity for us to warn them.
Sure, but we can talk about it. We can explain why it's the wrong thing to do. Okay.
Well, you've created the solution. The solution is not to, they're doing it, Anna, because they're like, look, guys, y'all made us merchants when we aren't merchants. We're living people. So then we'll just play your game. And they think that they can just do that. And they feel because they're successful in a couple of court cases or a couple of little things, but they don't actually get any financial gain or anything out of it, actually, right? And so I just want people who are watching this program to see us and hear, look, Anna, you've created the solution, which would be to correct the political status, to get out of their system, step away from that, right?
Right. But it's much more complex than people imagine.
Tell us about it. That's what we want to hear.
Well, here you are, you're a little baby, you're in your cradle, and these adults come through and they get your mother to sign paperwork that they don't fully disclose or explain to her. They misrepresent it as just, routine hospital administration type paperwork that they need. And so she signs this in ignorance, and it claims that you are a British territorial citizen. And that allows them to take your name and copyright it as a franchise of the British Crown. Now, you own the original private name, no question about that. And you started using it some days or weeks before they did this. But by moving your name into their jurisdiction and creating this enfranchised franchise for themselves, they've created a new thing. It's separate from you, right? And it's in a separate jurisdiction from your natural jurisdiction. And then, having created this franchise, this British Crown franchise named after you, they then go another yard and they use their commercial department to create a commercial version, a U.S. corporation named after you also. And that too, this municipal corporation named after you that we see in all of these things that are all capital names, that's a municipal corporation named after you. And it operates in commerce. Now, these two other persons, the British Crown person and the municipal government person, have nothing to do with you. They're not owned by you. They're not operated by you. You are kept totally ignorant of their existence. Okay? So there's really no way for you to understand how they are operating these derivatives of you that they have purloined and created under false representations. Okay? They're foreign citizens. They operate under foreign law. They are obligated to foreign presumptions and are attached to foreign history. They have nothing to do with Joe Average American, who has simply been used as a source for these derivative personalities, the British territorial person, that is considered a U.S. capital C citizen, a U.S. Meaning British Territorial United States citizen, and the municipal corporation that the all capital name represents are two foreign persons that really have nothing to do with you, the American. But because you've been trafficked, your name has been trafficked into this foreign jurisdiction, you are understood to be residing in that foreign jurisdiction. And it's the same for the municipal person, right? So you're starting out with three different personalities that are all dead. You're starting out with your lawful name, then you have a legal name, and then you have another legal name. And they're all attached to you, and they bring these things into their courts, and they subject them, and they say, okay, well, under our law, you're responsible for paying this. And you're left unaware that you're subject to their law in any case. I'm an American. Why are you talking to me about something like this? Why are you talking to me about the debts of your corporation?
Anna wrote a really great article recently, you guys, and it's just called Retrain Your Brain. So I highly recommend it. In the link below, there is a link for the Anna Von Wright's page. And when you scroll all the way to the bottom of it and start reading backwards the articles, then you'll start catching up with what's going on current day. All right, Anna, we're going to start taking some questions.
Okay.
Because everybody's been missing you and can't wait to start talking to you. I think that I know the answer to this one, but we're just going to start at the top because we're not skipping anybody here. Chris Edward, where in Title 18 can I find the definition for American state national? I don't think we care, but Anna,
we don't care because it's the federal definition for federal purposes of how they define state national within their system. I keep telling people federal code is not for us. Federal code is for them. It's for federal citizens. And, if you go into, I think it's Title 18, 1101A21, you find that in their system, American state national means someone who was born in American Samoa. But
they love to do the American Samoa thing for the American state nationals.
Yeah, and so that's two different definitions of American state national. And in their system, it means somebody born in American Samoa. In our system, it means anyone born in the states of the Union, one of the states of the Union. So two different systems, two different meanings to the same little group of words. And unfortunately, all these people who are making claims based on the fact that they have a definition of American state national in their system and have gone out and claimed that they were American state nationals based on this, have perjured themselves in front of the court because you weren't born in American Samoa. So, you're basically making a false claim in their system when you claim to be an American state national in their system. The only way that you can claim to be an American state national is as an American claiming back their birthright. Okay, so you don't even think about or read the federal code. Americans for generations have been, spending ungodly amounts of time learning and reading and trying to use federal code to defend themselves. And number one, only about 8% of all the federal code that has ever been written could potentially apply to an American. And that 8% that remains can only apply in certain cases where the American has knowingly and voluntarily entered federal turf or engaged in federally regulated activities. So what does that mean? If you enter an Air Force base or a naval dockyard, you know that you are entering an Air Force base or a naval dockyard. You are now in federal land. You're in federal territory. And the same thing with a post office. If you walk into a post office, you know, hey, this is a federal office. I'm going into federal territory here. All right? So if you walk into the post office or you decide to rob the naval dockyard, you have no excuse for doing that and claiming that you didn't know that you were basically involved in something on their territory, right? So that's one of the things that you can do to become subject to federal code. You can enter their actual territory, their premises, or their enclave, as they like to call it. And the other way that you become subject to federal law is if you engage in the transportation, sale, or manufacture of alcohol, tobacco, or firearms across interstate lines. Okay? You can do whatever you like with manufacturing guns, alcohol, tobacco products, whatever you want, as long as it's within your state. The federal jurisdiction and regulation only comes into effect when you start manufacturing, shipping, and selling these products between states. Okay, so that's another way that you can become trapped in federal jurisdiction and federal code, that little 8%, right, that you could potentially be responsible for. And the third and final way that you subject yourself to federal law is through interstate commerce. But in order for you to be engaged in interstate commerce, you have to be knowingly operating as a municipal corporation. You have to be knowingly and voluntarily agreeing to act as one of their corporations. And most of us don't even know that these corporations exist, much less do we knowingly and voluntarily engage in commercial activity. So there again, that's one of the hooks that they use to try to draw you into their jurisdiction and subject you under their law. But as you can see, there are just a very limited number of things that subject you to federal code. And out of the vast array of federal code, there's only about 8% of that federal code that could theoretically apply to you, the American, okay? Now, out of that, you've also got something else to consider, and that is that when you start using federal code, that gives them the presumption that you are agreeing to act as a federal citizen and to be subject to that code.
Contracting. You're contracting.
So why should you even bother? Look at what you're doing and what you're not doing. Ask yourself, okay, am I on federal premise? Have I entered federal turf here? And ask yourself, am I engaged in the transport, manufacture, or sale of alcohol, tobacco, or firearms across interstate lines? Well, if I'm not, then I'm not regulated. Okay, and then I'm going to look at, am I involved in interstate commerce? Am I voluntarily and knowingly involved in interstate commerce? Well, first of all, did I cross the state line when I was engaged in this activity? Oh, no, well, so it's not interstate, is it? Oh, and let's look at the word commerce. Am I doing this as an incorporated business? Chances are that you're not. So unless you have met, any of these criteria, there's no way for federal code to apply to you. So why in the hell spend your life, poring over federal code? You don't want to use federal code. You want to deny the use of federal code. You want to know how you could You want to know first and foremost, as I've just told you, how you could possibly become subject to federal code. And you want to be able to very succinctly demonstrate that no, you're not subject to federal code.
Right. Everything Anna's doing, friends, is to help you come back home so you don't have to fall under UCC. So let's just stop talking about it. Let's just come on away from there, right?
Well, and territorial code is just as bad.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't want to be either. You don't want to be under any of this kind of code.
Mm-mm.
As a matter of fact, most Americans don't even know what municipal code is. Okay, because what happens, what we think of as federal code, Title 4, Title 6, Title 10, all these titles, that's British United States Territorial Code. That's the British Territorial Government's federal code, okay? That's how they administer their operations when they're here, okay? Has nothing to do with us. Unless you fall into one of those three things I just described. Now, that's what the federal code is. And the only section of federal code that the municipal government ever adopted was Title 50. So only about 8% of the British territorial United States federal code applies to Americans. And of that, out of all these many titles, the only title of the federal code that was ever adopted by the municipal government was Federal Code Title 50, which is the War Powers Act and all of that. Well, the municipal code is actually a tome of, it's a series of volumes of codified municipal law that you have to pay for and receive from the government of the Washington, D.C. So most Americans have never even seen the municipal code that they use and administer. And because they don't understand that the municipality of Washington, D.C. operates as an international city-state, they don't realize that there's another whole code, which is actually the code that we more often bump heads with initially in the legal system. And it's that municipal code that is kind of the missing factor here. And it costs, I don't know, around $2,000, $2,500 to get a copy of the municipal code.
Okay. We have a new question here. It says, on the original Great Seal of the United States was a phoenix depicted instead of the eagle. Is that correct?
Well, I think you could interpret the bird either way, but officially it's an eagle.
Sometimes. My global family account has been set up for 4 months. 4 months ago, when the deposit of 5,000 AFDs was released into the account, I didn't receive it. Then the global family admin had said, wait until the next, and I would assume that's the next time. I mean, none of us have gotten access to that, so there's no emergency.
Right. Well, we're putting pieces in place in the background, getting ready for the release of the cards. And so, yeah, you did receive your disbursement into your account. It's now your money, right? And because it's gold-backed money, it's real money, right? It's not fiat. You couldn't just walk out on the street and start spending your AFD anyway. You have to have the connection to be able to translate the AFD into Federal Reserve notes on the street. And we do that via a card, which is it's like the world's smallest and slimmest computer, okay, that actually does the translation for you between your purchase and the amount that would come off the AFD account. Now that's the prosperity card. And they are working around the clock, believe me, trying to do this interface correctly so that they can do this instant recalibration, this translation from AFD into Federal Reserve notes or euros or rubles or yen, wherever you are in the entire world, and you're trying to use that card to make a purchase, it's set up so that it will be able to automatically in real time convert the amount of your currency into the amount of their currency, which is, that's a very stiff proposition to begin with. But then also the card has to be able to fit in all these different systems. It needs to be able to work in an ATM in Des Moines, Iowa, and also be able to work in an ATM in Paris.
There's a lot. You're doing something that no one has ever done before. Friends, whatever Anna's creating over here, it has not existed yet. So let's just hold our horses and just wait with some love, okay? And it's coming. So Jeff Jackson wants to know, Anna, Jeff on Ohio, I have my hand up for coordinator on Ohio. Can't get a link to the Sunday night coordinator call. I contacted Terry and Faye, still no link. Do you have any suggestions? Also, I don't know if this Jeff Jackson has been done. I know you just started coordinator training. So do you know Jeff Jackson? Do you have any advice for him?
Well, before you have to go through the training before you're a coordinator, and you have to be a coordinator before you come to the coordinator call as anything, The coordinator call is for coordinators. So if you're not a coordinator yet, and you haven't finished the training, there's no reason for you to get a link and be in that call.
Yep. All right. Kelly Maney says, regarding Anna's article, no debt expansion equals collapse. Please share about roll call vote for the American Federation dollar.
Well, it's just a matter of, asking the states, here's the new Federation dollar. Since it's a Federation dollar, we don't need the states to approve it, okay? But all of the states are given the information so that if they have any objections, they can raise them. And so it's it's kind of the opposite of a roll call vote in the sense that they're not actually voting on it, but they could object against it. And, what we've established is an American Federation dollar that is defined this way. And that's how we have established the American Federation dollar. So it's perfectly lawful for the Federation to establish a new currency. In fact, that's how all the currencies have been done. Because one of the primary reasons that we have a federation is so that the monetary system being used in all the states is the same. Otherwise, we'd have to exchange currencies every time we cross state borders, and that would take up a horrible amount of time and effort and just basically be a waste. So from the very beginning, our forefathers set it up so that the Federation issues the money. And, the states have this ability. The states have the ability, by the way, to set up their own currency. Every state could have its own coinage, and it could have its own exchange rates against that coinage. But they don't, because it's just much more convenient to all of us work together and have one currency.
All right, we got a new question. At what point does the common law sheriff officer transport, pick up an American state national from an incorporated who's been incarcerated? Do we pick up an American state national for court date? When do we go get them? And where are they taken?
We're not at that stage yet.
Gotta have the court.
Yep, you have to have the court set up.
Are our LLCs now dissolved?
No, not at all. If you have an LLC, what you need to do is hold a meeting of the board of directors and express your willingness to function lawfully, okay, under the Constitution, the law of the land, and to function lawfully. And come on over to the land jurisdiction by recording your trademarks, names, and business as part of the land jurisdiction. And then everything's cool. Then, you're out of the British system and you are, properly standing on the land and obeying the law of the land. So you're basically shifting from one form of law to another. But, if you're a decent business and you are providing a service or a product that is safe and that is of value to the community, obviously, then you have nothing to fear from this process.
Mm-hmm.
The only ones who really resist being lawfully converted, is what this is called, are those that are engaged in something shady or really damaging to the public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they incorporated to protect or to remove all their liability from themselves. Isn't that true?
Yeah, basically they, like defense contractors,
Mm-hmm.
involved in manufacturing poisons. Okay, like it's things like napalm and
Vaccine.
Agent Orange and toxic things, that ruin the environment and kill people and cause fires and all these sorts of things. These people have incorporated their businesses so that, number one, they can receive bankruptcy protection if they get in trouble at public expense. And number two, so that they can pursue these dangerous and harmful activities without accountability for it. And that's why they are all organized as British territorial corporations, because the British territorial government is a mercenary government and they're engaged in mercenary activities. And of course, they want to have the ability to manufacture poisons that are deadly to the environment and deadly to people with no accountability.
They're criminals, basically. And if you're not a criminal, then you don't have a problem coming back to the land and soil and being a responsible, caring, loving, business. That's basically it, right?
Right. Yeah, 99.9% of businesses should have no fear about returning and lawfully converting into land jurisdiction corporations. Those that are having a problem with it are criminal in nature. And so, their business should be outlawed anyway.
All right, here's another one. Can you explain the mega card you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that was on a Monday night, regarding the Global Family Group Bank, the mega card?
Okay, well, the mega card is a card that comes off of the Federal Reserve side of the equation, that is directly and only for purchases inside the United States. So you basically, when you set up a account there, you've created what's called a master account, and you have an account that handles gold and silver and asset-backed money, and you have an account that's in fiat, euros and Federal Reserve notes and that sort of thing. So you've got two different systems and two different cards. The mega card is the one that goes directly into the U.S. domestic system, I guess you would call it. And then the prosperity card is the card that would be issued in the asset-backed money realm.
Okay. Next question. It says, greetings to all Niti. I am Cheryl on Virginia. Please let Anna know I would like to offer a Genius Quantum bio back feed to support Jim and would like to forward some information to find the distance in the Healing, Texas.
Okay. Well, the best way to do that is just to send me an email at my regular all-purpose email of annavon@gmail.com. And, just use biofeedback as the subject line, and I will see that and realize that it's you. And then you can present any information that you think would help.
Thank you. Penny, do new American state nationals need to put in their second IRS office on the notice still? We're still having issues with people on the notices. Your national notice, your IRS, your Blinken, all the national notices. So now they're down to asking again, do we still notify the IRS and Internal Revenue like we all have been doing?
Yeah, because there are two separate offices.
And you still have to do it. It says most revocation of election to pay taxes must be sent to the state as well as federal offices. Yes.
Well, the state, you're just notifying your Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State will take care of whatever. So on that question, I got a question about that, Anna. Blinken doesn't seem to be coming back to D.C. What's going on with Blinken? Do you know anything about that? Because we're all waiting on green cards from Blinken.
Well, he is not coming back, and I don't believe he'll ever come back. I think that a lot of this is toast at this point because the international forces are finally catching up to it. As they do, all these other countries realize that they've been the victims of a Raj, an illegal mercenary force acting under color of law to occupy their country and commandeer their government. And they are responding. They're reacting. You will probably not know that 22 countries in Africa have aligned themselves with Russia rather than the U.S. simply because of this, that they realized that the U.S. was not America. They realized that it was the British territorial colonialist government wrapped up in a new wrapping paper. And they realized that their country has suffered under the boot heel of these hidden colonialists. And they're angry. Who wouldn't be?
Well, looks like time's about up. It's between the bottom of the dog pile, the smell of stinking rotten, the gates of hell, and the three-legged people who can't reach all three jurisdictions just because. They'd try if they could.
Yeah, I think that, oh my gosh, there's so many questions.
Try another one.
I'm getting distracted. Okay, hold on. I'm on Kansas. May I get info and training for the Sign in America? Thank you. Who does Kansas not have a coordinator yet?
I believe they have a coordinator, but they may not have a Sign in America coordinator, which may be an opportunity to discuss with the Kansas coordinator and see if you can get the Sign in America training to be the coordinator for Kansas.
Look at that, Manuel. You have a new idea of things that this is one way you can give back to your assembly. Alice Allen, none of this prosperity or banking has ever been done. The system is being built in real time. You cannot go to Microsoft or Google and and buy a prosperity system. Stay in harmony and show gratitude. That's nice.
No, your words have been spoken.
That's right. Okay, Lavelle Gavings. Common law sheriff question. Yes, I do mean once the courts are set up. Okay, yeah, she was asking. Let's see, she was asking earlier about that. Uh,
Okay,
hold
our
on.
courts, once they're set up, have what's called contemporaneous jurisdiction. It means
Mm,
our courts are running in our lane and their courts are running in their lane. Our courts
mm,
are courts of general jurisdiction that can talk to any topic in any jurisdiction because guess what? The state is the sovereign entity. Okay, but okay, here's a typical example. A guy is arrested for armed robbery and possession of drugs. He's thrown in jail for 5 years, right? He's thrown in one of their jails, using all of the presumptions and whatnot that we've been discussing. Um, so he's in jail for 5 years, and basically the family wants to get him out, right? The wife is sitting at home with no income from her husband, and things are tough, and they want to get their husband out of jail. So they come to us looking for us to go get him out of jail and at least get him into a better jail system. Well, no jail system exists at this time because our courts have been vacated since 1965. So the facilities that we built and that we own actually have been rented by this foreign Raj government. So our jails are now being used as their jails. Isn't that nice? And in order to come to an agreement about this, then we have to have some kind of upfront discussions with their court administrators about their use of our jails and the fact that we need our jails back for some of our own people. At that point, uh, everything changes. But at this point, it's not like we have jails set up in our homes where we're just going to come keep someone incarcerated until their time is up or they're retried in the proper jurisdiction.
We got a long way to go, but you know what? We're in the process of rebuilding this government. And we here on North Carolina are doing a phenomenal job. We're I'm the marshal at arms. We've got, yeah, I'm telling you, we're moving on. We've got all of our committees, we've got our handbooks, we've got our standard operating procedures. We're getting ready to get our chain of command and how it works. When you need Shannon, Shannon shows up. He's in Wasilla today.
yeah.
But when you need something, you want to know that chain of order of command. Jim's going to get his medicine. He's going to get somebody there. He's going to get his treatment. Somebody's going to show up and do the exercise. They're going to be there to support for a bath. You want the organization to run like a fine-tuned machine and produce. We're fixing to cross that barrier. And we're kind of excited and kind of scared all at the same time because we've never done this. Even me as the marshal, and my job to secure and to make sure and to check, and then where this militia comes in, because the marshal at arms will also have a position with the militia. Well, that's to filter the information to the state from the federation and to make sure everybody's done. So we're thinking not so much as just book reading it and taking people's word for it. We're reading your articles. Me and Niti spent 3 hours the other day with multiple people from all states, and we took your articles and we tore those things apart and we read them and we went back over and we said, look at that and look at that and look at that.
And what do you think about that? And what did you get out of it? The first thing we do is we read it, Anna, and then we ask them, what did you get out of that? Because, everybody has a different experience level, different perspective. And then we help each other because we're all breaking out of the mind control brainwashing system, and then we're like, whoa, that's de facto. we don't want to do that. We want to go this way. And, so we're practicing. We created this Telegram channel. I know I told you about this, I think a couple weeks ago, Anna, but me and Cynthia have invited everybody across the nation, anybody, if they're watching this podcast, like they don't have to have already come back to the land and soil to join us there and have a conversation, ask us questions. And we are not teaching. We're not the teacher. You're the teacher. We're going over your articles. We're reading them together. We're asking people what they think of it. How are they receiving it? What is their interpretation? And then we're, telling folks we're being corrected. We're correcting other people maybe. And then when we don't have an answer, we go, bring that to Tuesday. Bring it Tuesday so that we can ask Anna, because we don't know. We'll just have to ask Anna. And so it was so much fun. We've just done it a couple of times, but that is what we're doing this new year to help grow and bring more people home in a safer way, because they all feel a little bit more comfortable. They've already had a little exposure. But it's exciting, Anna. It's pretty exciting.
Well, sure. And I really appreciate it when that kind of interaction takes place, and those who are further along the track are helping those that are just beginning, because that saves me having to repeat for the 10,000th time. And it takes a lot of the burden of the teaching off of my shoulders when I have people that have studied, made themselves approved, and and have answers and can share those answers. That's a wonderful function, and I very much appreciate that.
We're working on it. We're working on it. Okay, look, I think I have answers for these last 3 things, so I'm just going to pop them up here real fast. But friends, we're not taking any more questions because we are going way over time. This person's saying, where do I send my criminal incident report to be addressed and settled? You don't. Our courts aren't up yet. Just wait. Also, how do baby dude minors start driving? They need to follow whatever the current standard operating procedures are, unless and until we have our courts up. The courts aren't up yet, so just, don't be crazy. Can you give us any update regarding mortgages, property taxes, and escrows? Yes, we're not ready. It's coming. Everything's coming. All these answers are coming. Anna is building it from literally scratch. She's building it from literally scratch and making it bigger and better and bigger and better and bigger and better and the best and the best.
As far as mortgages, I'll just comment briefly. Mortgages were never any obligation that an American had. Mortgages are leftovers. Actually, it's the property that has the mortgage. You don't. Yeah, so all of that funky monkey stuff is going to go out the door. We're not part of that system. We're either restoring our own system, as in the case of the assemblies, which, and Niti is exactly right, because nobody's done this in 100 and plus years, right? 150 years. There is nobody now alive who remembers how this is done. What we know from our grandparents and from our history books and our records, our public records. We've had to rebuild this and restore this ourselves with no help from a prior generation being here to tell us how to do things. So it's really very challenging. And there are hundreds of questions.
Yeah. And we are trying to encourage folks to ask the questions, Anna, and not to be afraid, because they came in and they're like saying, we're trusting you. And I'm like, no, you better not. You better go know what you're talking about, or read until you get it or understand. And if you don't take actions that you don't understand. You need to.
Yeah. If we had only all followed that from day one, we wouldn't be in the trouble we're in right now.
Yeah. When
People,
we tell them Anna, they're just like, what? And I'm like, we don't just listen to Anna. We all have tried to prove Anna wrong, and then we couldn't. And that's the reason why we are so faithful to Anna. It's not because it's just Anna. And Anna's not a goddess, even though we think you're kind of a goddess a little bit, Anna. You're pretty much a goddess a little bit for us. But
the food goddess, that's the dogs call me the food goddess, yes. No, no, not at all. And in fact, the more empowered more people become by knowledge, the better, because knowledge is power. And I often think of the book of Amos, and Amos the prophet saying, "My people are being destroyed for lack of knowledge." It struck me when I was doing the research, this most recent little blurb about the Three Crowns final summation. There's a reason why it's so difficult for people to access land law, why we are taught nothing about land law. Even though land is the fundamental concept in general jurisdiction, we know nothing about land law. Why is that? Well, obviously, it's because it's the crucial missing piece that collapses the entire tower.
Yep. Yeah, they're trying to control the land. They have done everything to keep us from being able to purchase land. They don't allow any loans for the land. You were talking about the debt and how, they need to create debt. I mean, I wish they would let me have some debt so I could buy some land, but they won't let me have any land. If I were to get the land, I'm not allowed to use it for what I want to use it for. I have to only use it for their monoculture poison scheme, which I'm not going to do. And otherwise, they don't want to write a loan out for it. And they will just come seize the land if they find out that I wasn't using it for their monocrop soy or whatever sludge nonsense garbage that they want to do.
Well, you see, Niti, they're not us.
Yeah.
And so they actually don't have any control of our land. They have created a state trust that they have rolled everything into, and then they pretend to be the administrators of that state trust. And in actual law and in fact, the moment one of us shows up and says, okay, I'm here, dissolve the state trust, they don't have a leg to stand on in terms of actual law. They have to dissolve that state trust and give you whatever you want.
Wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This is so much fun, Anna. I'm so happy that we're walking into the new year with all this good news. All this good news. Thank you for your work. Thank you for just,
your time and your family.
Yes.
You're giving up that.
All the sacrifices that you're making. Everybody was cozily enjoying the holiday season while you were just, I could just see you with your pen.
She didn't have Jim at home, so she was trying to make busy.
That's right.
Being busy. And we were sending so much love and light your way and praising you and praising you and praising you and praising you. So thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, meet me and Cynthia on the Telegram channel. If you would like, this is open for anybody following the podcast. We keep popping up we keep opening the thing. We haven't made a schedule yet, Cynthia. We're gonna have to figure that out. But we want to get everybody practicing everything, and then we'll come back, because between now and next week, Anna, it just feels like a long time. And we just miss you so much every single day. So we just keep talking about all the things that you're writing and whatever you're doing between now and then. And we're going to become so proficient, because that's what we need to do, friends. So we'll meet you guys on Telegram, and we'll see Anna next Tuesday.
Okie dokie. Take care, guys.